glorious. Oh.
And it's still true. 2 months later, and it's still true. I really like, so over the course of this, that our enthusiasm has not diminished at all. What was the most rewarding part of starting You're Invited? So, Rachel, what do you think was the most rewarding part?
Oh, the Friday morning hug. Just being able to see everyone that I've missed so much, and to feel part of an active community where I can really, like emotionally, I'm like, oh, I don't think I could have gotten through the last few months without You're Invited, because it has just been such a glow in my week.
As this shelter in place has gone on, I have absolutely was becoming more and more withdrawn from and feeling so much more cut out from the game community. And what this has done is that, you know, remembering all the people out there who I miss and care about also miss each other, and being able to have this every Friday it's the same. It's having that to look forward to so that I can kind of visit with everybody. Gives me a focus for the week and something to look forward to going into the weekend. And even having, I know like everybody's like, time is meaningless anymore, nothing matters, and
it's a good cap to the week.
It actually gives structure to my week, which was starting to get really out there.
Dance. Good morning, everybody. Friends and gamers on the interwebs. Sorry.
Good morning.
I'm Rachel. This is episode
Julie.
11 of You're Invited. And in this episode, Julie, VP and COO of Greenbrier Games, and myself, VP of Channel Marketing for White Wizard Games, we'll chat over a good cup of coffee, Christmas themed, of course, and we'll talk about the tabletop industry news, a topic that we feel is an important part of running a board game publishing company. And all the while, we will discuss your comments and questions in the live chat, because you're invited.
This week is sponsored by Arcane Wonders, publishers of the Dice Tower Essential line of games, which include Onitama, Smartphone Inc., and Aquatica. And we're also sponsored by XYZ Game Labs. Remember to fill your stockings, light your candles, and enjoy your hours of family fun with XYZ's favorites like Robot Lab, Zoo Year's Eve, Inoka, or Borderlands, Tiny Tina's Robot Tea Party. All of them are 50% off with the code INVITED, all lowercase, until December 15th. So you still have time for that.
Mm-hmm. So this season, we are sharing the love with others if you share the love with us. So for every share of our posts, we have been tallying those up, and we're going to give back your generosity to us by a donation to our community. So for me, it's the Great Plains Gaming Project, and for Julie, it's Girls Inc. Indie. Now, the Great Plains Gaming Project, to me, is an organization that I am locally involved in. It's here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and we do things to encourage, it's called Improving the Community Through Cardboard. Now, we're like, for example, this week, we are going to go down to our local friendly game store, and we're going to do some wrapping of games for Toys for Tots.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to go help them out because they're doing a bunch of donations, and we're going to go wrap them up for them. Last year around this time, when in the before times, we were able to go to, that's what I call it all the time now. In the before times, we went to Omaha Home for Boys, and we got to meet some amazing young gentlemen and I think there were some girls there too. It wasn't just for them, but I loved sitting down with them and teaching them games. I walked in and they're like, what is this? Like, I've only ever played Monopoly. And I'm like, oh, let me tell you. So we broke out some Ice Cool. We broke out, they loved it. They're like, dude,
so
I got your penguin. And then we had Tokyo Highway out from Jordan Draper. We were like making all these little, so cool. And then we even finished up with some Just One. It was great. My kids, even my daughter McKenna, she's 13. She got to come along, and and it was just great. So those are a few of the things that Great Plains Gaming Project is doing here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and the surrounding area, like Omaha and things like that. And I have put a link in the description box below that has the fundraiser link that I just threw that up for Giving Tuesday, and it was amazing to see all the response. I'm also, going to donate to match your shares, and then we're also taking donations of games. If you guys would like to send something my way, shoot me a note for my address, and I will get them some games to donate from you guys. So, so what we're gonna do right now is give you 10 seconds to share the stream so that every one of those shares turns into $1 for GPGP. Click. All right. I love that thing. So cute. Okay.
So, tabletop news.
Tabletop news.
So I'm going to do a quick thing because you kind of already brought up Giving Tuesday.
Yes.
Giving Tuesday was up in general, not just in the board game community, 25% from last year. While we're all sitting at home, having, and a lot of people are having their own individual struggles, they are still very much appreciative of the other things out there that need their help. So we both have our own personal, we did Giving Tuesday fundraisers. So, and both of the links are down at the bottom. So still ongoing links. Yeah, we're not there yet.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
I added it. No, just took over. Okay, go ahead.
So much drama. So if you haven't given or have more that you want to give, we both have really great charities that we have been donating to. And I'd like to point out that 2 of our shout out people also have some really great ones. So Chris has ongoing Extra Life campaign is still live. And then Kira,
Charity Board Gamer. Yep.
Charity Board Gamer. And then Kira, who's Kira Ann Peevely, who works for Man vs. Meeple, also has one going for you, an Improved Leadership Foundation. So you have choices. Plenty of squoptions, as my niece Riley would say.
I love it. So then,
and then there was this.
Oh my gosh!
This is one that for a publisher, for a publisher, this is your nightmare fuel. This is what keeps you awake at night. And so we, as Maddie, they had an update out that talked about how the freight ship hit high winds. And so a bunch of, each one of those, it's so funny. So right there, it looks like shoe boxes. Those are shoe boxes, friends. Those are giant crates. Yes. Those are the ones that people turn into homes and stuff, like tiny houses, full of product. And they don't know what has, been dumped into the ocean and what hasn't. So they're waiting until they get back. But part of the reason we wanted to highlight the actual and the link again to the Kickstarter update is in our links, is their update is quite possibly the best update in this worst case scenario I have ever read. They kept it very positive. You could tell they were upset and frustrated, but they kept it kind of a little bit silly and a little bit light so that their Kickstarter backers would not feel panicky that they wouldn't get the end result of product. So they reassured them that regardless of whether or not the game was one of the ones that went to the bottom of the ocean, they have already contacted their manufacturer to start making new product so that they've got a backup. They checked all the boxes before they put out this post. That was something that terrifies me, but also at the same time was a great example of how to be very professional in that situation while still showing your emotion and reassuring our backers in a way that kept it light and silly. So I feel for them, but I'm also very impressed by how they handled it.
It was very well done, I thought.
Yeah.
So now what do I have here? I gotta switch to my. Gotta get off of this. Okay. So, and I am noticing in the comments we have a lot of first timers. This is so cool.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, and I am just loving the fact that we've got people that will not know how to make sure that they are constantly reminded when we go live.
All the time.
You can click. You like that? That was a great transition. 3 dots in your upper right-hand corner, and you can choose to be notified every time we go live. And we will also have the link to our YouTube account in the description box below. I love doing this. Like, I feel like such a YouTuber when I do it. And you can subscribe and find our archive shows after streaming.
Yep. Nice.
Whew. Now, let's get into it.
Yeah.
Playtesting.
So our question is, how do you guys, we're going to talk about our whole experience, but we'd love to hear how you track progress as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we asked, this was, I looked it up last night on our stats, and this was the most ever like our reach on this specific question that we posted on Monday was by far the most active and interested. Like, this is a real good conversation to have.
Yeah.
So let's see. Should I just jump in, or are we gonna like say hi to everybody? What should we do, Julie?
Yeah, we should say hi. So yes, there was a lot of comments on the news first. So let's take a quick look at what people were saying. James had some feels about it.
Which one here? Oh, James.
James Surley.
Yeah, those shipping containers. The humanity.
Yeah,
it's true.
That's exactly how. Yeah, it's terrifying to think of, but you also have to plan for something like that. You know, it's real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, worst nightmare ever.
It's one of mine too.
Much feels to Asmati for this. Dang. I love that we've got Susie, who has a special alarm for Friday mornings to catch us, and so does Susie. Amy. I love seeing everybody. Oh, and Amy, one of her shipments crashed too, but it was okay.
So it crashed. So that's the other thing. Okay, so the shipping channels, and they're very precise because they have to be, but they're still, freight ships are not, high speed, turn on a dime, fine-tuned machines that are on a, and they're in the ocean, which, yes, there are channels which follow currents, but nonetheless, it's not a precise thing that you could do. So accidents will happen.
Mm-hmm.
I try not to think about it.
Yeah, it's scary. I don't want to talk about it anymore. It's scary.
All right, so let's talk about playtesting instead.
Playtesting!
So talk to me about, because we've talked about this before, but we're going a little bit deeper dive this time. Tell me about how many tiers of playtesting did you use when you were part of Mint Cooperative? Talk to me about that.
Okay, so we had a really we had a 3-tier process.
Yeah.
And it's slightly different than yours, but like ours was, we had such a small company. It was just, the designer, who was then the developer, who was then the publisher, and my multi-talented husband was not also going to be able to play test. So what we did.
It's smart to realize that.
Yes. You can't don't go through this in an echo chamber, and don't go through it like in a tunnel.
There's a lot of hubris I see.
Exactly. So
publishers.
So I called this, it's all Greek to me, because we decided to name these like alpha. Alpha testers were our game group friends that would come over, and they would alpha test. They would go through, and that would be like an internal play testing to another publisher. And they'd go through, if iterate on the fly, it would be, break it, if now it's broken, go back, try something else. Don't go through the whole game. It's that very raw stage. And I would just take notes, and they would just, do what they needed to do. Then Delta was what we called our remote testing, our remote blind, where we would connect with members of the community that wanted to help. And we called it Delta because it was still change. There was still a lot of things that came out of that in terms of improving the product. So, and then Omega was basically that last stage where it was pretty polished. We had the prototypes made, but we wanted to put it out one last time to key people who were maybe going to be demo team for us, or, I wanted them to be familiar with the final iteration. Cause that was another thing. Like when you play a game 50,000 times and it changes every time, you're like, what does the end look like? Whereas an alpha tester, they saw a very different thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got your Omega guys and they, or women, and they have, a almost finished product, and we wanted them to tell us the feels. When you played it, what did everybody feel like? Yes, because we know the mechanics. We know the everything should be
The mapping,
grammatically
stuff, right.
Grammatically, the graphics, all of that. But how does that feel? And then can you get people excited about it, as a demoer? So that was where we went with our Omega. And after you tell yours, I want to talk a lot about how we chose our playtesters. So tell me your 3-tier.
Oh, okay, sure. So our alpha testing was in-house. So we did not send it out very frequently at that point. For us, the fail faster was essential that it be just us so that we could play for 15 minutes, make the adjustment, play 15 minutes, make the adjustment, get through something, be like, I hate it, wipe it off. So all of those like chainsaw edits, which still not as frequently anymore because we're not designing in-house as much as we are taking on designs that have already gone through that process from other designers outside, because we don't have the time. So when we made the conscious decision to focus more on publishing than designing, that piece of it kind of fell by the wayside. But in those early years, and still occasionally, like so for Tales of Barbaria, where I was co-designing, that was still the case. But most of the time, that has already come to us, and we want it past that. So when I play it that first time, I can tell if it's already past alpha. And if it's not, I say, thank you so much. Please feel free to continue working on this with my feedback and love, but we will not be signing this until it's past the stage.
Boom. So, don't give me an idea. Give me a game.
Correct. So that piece of it was always in-house. Beta, but then to that end, beta tends to be difficult to do in-house once you've gotten so close to it and you've been the designer, and you don't want to also do the development. So in-house, if we're doing it, somebody else takes over the dev if somebody else was the lead designer on it. But we also have a very tight-knit group of people who are scattered all over the country, and we used to be able to meet at conventions, and now I hand it off to them at Tabletop Simulator, or I mail them a hard copy of the game, a prototype. Thank you, Print Play Games. We've talked about them earlier.
Right.
Depending on who it is, what their comfort level is. And I am so grateful that I didn't have to find them this year, that that's already been established, because so Jeff, who lives up in New Hampshire, Jennifer Edwards, I have Small Pocket, who's in Columbus, Ohio. Small Pockets are groups of people who have their own play groups. And I send it to them when it's at the beta stage, where I have gotten through an entire game several times and I know there's clunky bits, but it's a cohesive game. It's now needing more fine tuning, slightly more than just polishing, but I can give it to them and I trust them to, because they've been play testing our game since the beginning, to see the overall vision of what we're trying to do and where we're trying to go, and they know us. So that's my beta testing. And that happens gradually. That happens from the getting play testers over the years who just hang out, and we have a good rapport and all of that. And then finally I do Delta testing. So I do that. It's not quite at the finished polish part that you said.
Mm-hmm.
I am playtesting it for fun. I'm also playtesting it because I want to see, have being the person that writes the rule books. I want to send it out blind and see if there's any huge mistakes.
Right.
So if there might be fine tuning still to happen about numbers and the feels might not quite hit right in certain places and all of that. But for me, it's more at that point. Did they understand without my help whatsoever how to play this game?
Yeah, that's a huge part of the blind is
correct. And I will say again, that can be a tabletop simulator and hard. I've mailed out copies, and I've used tabletop simulator before this. I'm just leaning heavily into it this year. We showed a picture this week of me arranging events to do stuff like that. And you miss out on some of that when you can't be in person to observe, but you also get, you can get a lot more people involved when it's on Tabletop Simulator. So
it's true. I think that's going to be a huge thing with playtesting moving forward. There is a huge amount of people that are more familiar with digital playtesting now, whereas before it was definitely not a thing. But what I would say is when you go to select your playtesters, now that sounds kind of strange because basically we're like anybody we can get, like we're always happy. But at the same time, if you have an opportunity to be selective, it's really cool to spend time digging into who your playtesters are. Because I get it. I love psychology and I get really into this kind of stuff. But we all know not every game is for every player. And when I send out my call, oh Lord, what are we? I'm missing things.
No, just keep talking. Keep talking. Don't
okay, cool.
Stay the course. I believe in you.
All right. So distraction. I think that it's important to know about what kind of gamer they are, because I am not going to do an all call where I'm going to be doing a heavily strategic game and pull from a bunch of party gamers. That seems silly to me.
Or in general, like if beggars can't be choosers. If you're new, at least establish what is that person's favorite style of gameplay. So if they give you feedback that's all negative,
right,
at least you had a body there that could play the game so you could see it play through from somebody else's eyes, but you don't have to invest very deeply in their distaste for it because it wasn't their style of game to begin with.
Right.
So if you're new and you don't have that luxury, just establish what is their interest.
Right. And in the description box, I went ahead and put in a link to a tabletop gaming style quiz. So it has a graph and axis of where you land on aggressive versus non-aggressive, a strategic versus more party style. And it was really helpful for me when I was taking applications for our Delta cycle to know who is probably going to at least enjoy this. And so they would be, for retention's sake, we want more people to come back and continue to play test for us. So we have that in there. Also, yes,
there's a Gil had them, a deck of cards. It's like 3 or 4 cards.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a deck, but it's a gaming, like, where are you today? Like, are you at 25% attention span, 50% attention span, 70, like,
good call.
And then on the reverse, are you feeling like happy, silly? Like it's a quick litmus test also. Mm-hmm. So not just what style of game, but mentally, if you're at and it was a convention, specifically convention setup, but also a nice one to do as a quick test of, are you here as a body because your friend dragged you along, or you're so excited, but it's 8:00 at night and you've been playtesting all day and your brain is goo, but you're here because you said you would and you're committed. Like, where are you in your game investment for playtesting right now so that I can gauge it? And again, It's cool if you're like 25% because you're starving. Just let me know.
Also, always, if you're in person, always feed them.
Yeah, there's that too. Agreed.
The other thing I wanted to say is like, so also in the description box, I told you I was all ready for this one. I directly copied off of Jamie Stegmaier. He had posted one that said, selecting the best playtesters. It was a blog. And he had some really interesting questions. Like, if you were in this situation, what would you do? And it was super helpful for me to know what kind of playtester would they be. Like, would they be one that is going to be like, I don't know, so we just didn't do it, and now I'm going to be extending my timeline. There was a lot of really good things in that one. So we, in the description box, I went ahead and posted the link to like a public resource folder on playtesting that I put up. There's the initial Delta form that I put in, and it covers things like demographics and things like that. And then it gets into gameplay. But then I also have a recurring one that I used that was shorter for like other times where they were playing the game again and didn't need to go through all those extra questions, because it was a Google form that was automatically populating into my spreadsheet, and I didn't want them to have to repeat themselves 1,000 times. So it's things like length of play. Was it too long, just right, too short? Ease of learning, incredibly easy, same as similar style games, or near impossible. And then it talked about in-game decisions and player interaction and rules questions, and was there a clearly dominant strategy? Things like that. And if you are also doing this in-house, there you have resources like these. Also in the description box, failfaster.ca is an amazing playtest journal that Jay Cormier made. And it's super cool. You can get it from the Game Crafter. You can get it, I believe Lion Rampant has it in Canadian bookstores and things like that too. There's a lot of ways to do this right. And I remember I was so passionate and excited about Jay's Kickstarter that I was like all in. I was like, hey, have you tried doing this? I started working all my angles, when I do when I'm like really excited about something. Mm-hmm. And I sent I just sent him a ton of stuff. And because I saw this as an opportunity for the entire industry to get better, because they had good playtesting feedback, like, and how to do this better. And I saw that as a road to better games.
So you have all of these, but I'd like to bring it back, because so you have all these different things and all these different types of questions you can ask. One thing that you should do before you start your playtesting, so not just knowing what your playtesters, where they're at, so that you have specific data about that, but know what you're asking of your playtesters when you're going in. So what feedback are you asking for? Are you asking for numbers and stats and times and durations? Are you asking them to playtest a specific part? Are they looking for what their experience feels like? Are they looking for what only one section of the game because it's super clunky, and these are your primary playtesters where they can zoom in on one place and give you the feedback about one thing and not have to give you their blow by blow of everything? Do you want a blow by blow of everything? Are they willing to record themselves so that you can watch it, because we're in COVID and you can't watch them in person and just observe? All of these things are things you should be asking yourself before you send out, when you do it, so that you don't just get back whatever they felt like telling you.
Right. Because sometimes they'll just go on and on.
Right.
And it's something that has nothing to do with what you are looking at right now. You're like, no, I've got that handled. Right. Please focus on this.
Right. Right. So all of those resources, fantastic. Don't give them all of it every time, all at once.
Right.
Pick what you need. So be familiar with all of the different things that you can ask, and then make the executive decision of what you think you should ask for a specific, and which is going to change from playtest to playtest, and the long, duration of the game. Right. So
I love what you said about the videoing, because the nonverbals are a thing that you have to watch for.
Right. And so that is the one downside. I can get a lot more playtests in right now because I can be like, here's the link on Tabletop Simulator. Here's the survey that I wrote online link, instead of having to hand you a survey, or send me an email if there's something I missed that you really feel you need to tell me. Here's my email. You can also send me an email as well as the survey link. Go. Share it with as many people as you like. Like,
Yeah.
I can get a lot. Again, you have to be careful because it might not always be the quality that you want, because there might be a lot of enthusiastic gamers who aren't interested in your style of game, or somebody who's just bored on a Friday and wanted something to do. But I don't get that, I can get a whole written thing, but I don't get.
Right. Checking your phone. Yep.
I don't get that. And I don't get.
Yes. Oh my gosh, what just happened? That's so cool.
And that's huge. So
edge of your seat.
Right.
Yeah.
That's that's right now the exchange.
Right.
So if somebody's willing to record and send, that's huge. But it's also a much, bigger ask. And some people are still willing to do it, but I think it's a less. It seems a little bit more intimate, even if it's just something that's strictly for.
Right. And in our community, there's a lot of people who would maybe feel like that was invasive. So I understand.
Right.
But if the reasoning's known, maybe that would be something that people would be more interested in. But
we get through the playtest.
Yes.
We're done. We have all this data. What do you do? What do you do with it? Rachel, what do you do with it?
Spreadsheets. My favorite thing.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You're really good at them.
I love making spreadsheets. Okay, so what I hopefully throughout the entire process was doing was using a a Google form to collect all the data. And then as it then comes to a close, I go in, I delete all the extraneous data, and I analyze the feedback by trends.
And what do you mean by extraneous data?
Like, I just wanted to use a $5 word. That's really all it was. I mean,
no. I'm smiling and being smirky because we've talked about it. And
yes.
What do you mean by extraneous?
Well, okay, specifically extraneous data is like the demographics that I'm not going to give to the designer or developer that's going to analyze, move off of the trends. But I am, the outliers, things that, okay, one person out of 35 said this, because obviously that bothers them. That's an outlier. But if there is consistent, hey, this card didn't interact correctly with the rest of the deck, boom, that is a real thing that we have to address. But just kind of paring it all down, because when you show people a lot of data in one shot, they get overwhelmed, especially if they're not data people. And a lot of times I'm the data person and the designer is not. So I have to pare that all away to give them what they need so that they can really focus on fixing things rather than enjoying all the charts and things that I can make.
Or listening to every single piece of feedback, good or bad, positive or negative, and fixating on a piece of feedback that may be not helpful in the first place, or might be helpful but might be couched in a way that makes them feels that is not productive in their creative process.
That's right.
Being the recipient of those critiques as a designer in the past, I can empathize with that, but it is something that it's so important to your point. If you put it in a spreadsheet and you look at the trends, it's an easy way. it is an easy way, even if you're doing it yourself, to remove yourself from the emotion of it. If you're
objective data versus subjective feels.
Right. Initially, and when we first started doing it, I did not. I was just going through the sheets, and we had pages and pages and pages and pages of notes. And I'd cry sometimes.
Mm-hmm. I've seen many people cry. I've seen many people leave the room and just
do it privately and be able to get past that and then look at, oh, this is said 15 times. This is said 3 times. This was mentioned once.
You sound like you're talking about your top tip.
Yes. We're at that. We're at that point. You can't argue with a piece of paper. So getting it in writing, I know, like I've had this conversation. If you can get it in writing, most people, and this is, you have to be careful with this because there are some people who are not going to be able to. So you have to be respectful of that. But if you can get it in writing, whether it's a survey, whether it's an email, whether it's a written piece of paper, do not look through it while they are there. Wait until you have time privately, follow up with an email questions when you have had time to process your feels. For me, I'm half Italian. I'm a very passionate person. So I can get out all of the arguing and talking back and being defensive about my designs to a piece of paper who isn't going to care.
Mm-hmm.
Does not care if I'm upset and insulted by their description of my game, and I can get all that out before I can look at it objectively. So if you are somebody who doesn't and you're data driven and you can do that on the fly, great. But if you can't, just get it in writing and then don't look at stuff until afterwards so that you can maintain that professional nature that will keep people coming back and still being honest with you instead of being afraid of you and lying to your face.
Not helpful.
It's not helpful in the long run. It's not.
And my tip is just to remember data is objective. So look for trends, not specifics. The outliers are they're outliers. And you can see that better if you step back and look at it as a whole, not listening to these individual things. And like you said, don't discuss the feedback right there unless you're in a full iteration with your alphas. Then you would be, that's a different situation. But your deltas, if you're remote blind, do it this way, in my opinion.
So I would like to point out there's a really great Kurt has a very good counterpoint to what we just said.
Ooh. Let me do that then.
The initial reaction and deeper reflection have similar weight because the initial reaction is going to, from a player, is going to give you that, whether it's captured their imagination, their excitement. Deeper reflection is going to give you some good pieces of information, so that written part. But the initial reaction, which I think is the observation piece, which is kind of tough right now, is absolutely important for exactly why he said. So and I will say that having been in playtest sessions with Kurt is a master of saying, oh, that's interesting, and not his feels about your opinion. And being
good.
Very encouraging on hearing what you have to say, whether he personally agrees with it or not. You don't know. I never want to play poker with him.
Right. Now that's going to happen the next con. I'm throwing that down.
There were a ton of people. There was a lot of conversation.
Such good discussion. Oh my goodness. I don't even know where to start. Like, it was all so good.
So just pick something, because every single comment today was fantastic.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
Mike was talking about scheduling playtesting.
Yeah, I think I wrote the one I wrote down.
Yes.
was Katie, because there's a story with Katie, because she popped in at I have to write down the times of these comments. She said, have Rachel throw you to the wolves. So that's a story where I took her into the Unpub room with her design and threw it down in front of like 3 major publishers and designers and had them make the game amazing. However, it was very difficult to hear because like you said, it was 11 p.m. after a long day of being at a con, and it was very difficult. So be aware of your own headspace if you're going to be sitting in on a play test. Also, if you can't handle it, don't go. So, gosh,
I've learned to develop thicker skin.
it's true, and for first time designers, it's difficult. I mean, it's your baby, and so
the most recent one, Glenn posted that he loves brutal honesty. And don't always want testers to offer a solution, which is also a key point.
If you're a good playtester, you say the problem, but you don't offer the solution. That's our job.
So 100% agree with that.
Yes. It's like, okay, I didn't see this problem, but your solution may not be the right one. So, keep that. But
if you're trying to brainstorm, I get it, because somebody who is excited about playtesting wants to be a part of your community, and they want to feel like they are part of the community. So that is hard. And that piece of it, when the offering solutions, I'm really happy to be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And just leave it at that. But try to move them on, because that's not what we're looking for. But again, if you front load, I am looking for problems, not solutions.
Right.
You're going to cut down on that quite a bit.
It's true.
So,
wow.
What's going on with you this week, Miss Rachael?
Oh, my goodness. This week, I honestly just kind of covered it with GPGP. I was really excited about the fact that we had raised $205, I think. And I had a goal of $250, but that was after I upped it because I only put $100. It was such a random. I was just like, oh, I should put up a fundraiser. Cool. And then it blew it away in like an hour. So it just showed me that people wanted to participate. We have the links to both you and I's Giving Tuesday donation fundraisers in the description box, and I went ahead and shared them to the page on your invited just a few minutes before.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So we have those all available for anyone who would like to throw $1 in there, because every dollar you put in is $2. So and Julie,
right? So so theirs is done, and we're in the manufacturing process. So I've been crunching to try to get this done so that before Chinese New Year. Tales of Barbaria is finished, and my super serious work this week has been looking at game components, because they sent me. So typically we do a lot of miniatures in our games, and those are all made with, we have the molds and the whole process. And for this particular one, we're outsourcing the bears and looking at tiny little bears for counting bears, and I don't know what all they're from, to be honest, but outsourcing them has been real tough. Let me tell you, it's been real hard work to play with teeny tiny bears and be like, not you, but maybe you. But there's been a lot of that.
It. Not you, bear, but you, bear. Oh, you're cute too. Don't worry. But is this?
And then also approving our pins.
Yes.
So this has been, it's been a rough week. It's like the first half of the week, I will say, crunching to make sure all the editing was done and fine and signed off and looking at everything was, it was some work. But then I also got, as I was sending out that piece of it, our front-ended plastics and metals components piece came in the mail, and I was like, oh. And of course the pledge manager is open, so if you like what you see,
there you go.
Throw it out there.
There you are. I mean, that's what we do, and you have to help us. So. All right, and we have an exciting shout out, and he's in the comments today.
He is. So our shout out is for Glenn, who is the president of Forbidden Games. He is my friend, so I, totally biased on this, but he's also a great advocate of open communication in the industry, and is somebody who is willing to listen and be a friend to everybody and have a conversation, even when it's a tough one. So I appreciate that about him very much. So shout out for Glenn.
Yes. All right. Next week, we have marketing tips with our first guest host. I have to figure out how to get 3 people on this screen, but we're going to have Debbie Moynihan from White Wizard Games, and she is a marketing guru, and I have lots to learn from her still at my new position, but I cannot wait to have her come on. And since we're doing the, what did you call it, concept concrete on the cycle, we're getting to the point where, it's play tested. Now we need to get our marketing going so we can get to Kickstarter. So there you go. We're going to have a great conversation next week.
Yep.
All right. What do we have? Oh, next week.
We have next week's we just finished talking about. So we have the end.
Oh,
thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Wait a second.
This week's awesome session was sponsored by
Kids Table.
Kids Table, which we love them almost as much as we love you.
You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, YouTube and Pinterest, and links are all in the description box below.
Enjoy the rest of your Friday and your weekend. And remember, next week, you're invited.
Oh, boy.